begin. Awesome. So welcome to today's The Circle. This month we're talking and focusing on being an empath. And maybe you identify as an empath, or maybe you know an empath. And this is really kind of a place where we remember, we go back to almost the basics of what it is to recover that ground. Because a lot of times in life, we end out flying high or going fast, and we forget the normal different things that we encounter as empaths. And we're going to be talking about that today. This is the third class about the empath. We've talked about in the first one, what is an empath? The second one, really about how to ground and center and what you're doing with your energy. This one, we're really going to focus on, what's going on, but also how it's impacting your energy and techniques to clear the energy. So this is all about the energetic hygiene in this class. So let's go ahead and open up the circle. Empaths, energetic hygiene. This is the circle with Granddaughter Crow. Let me go ahead and set sacred space. So awesome. Welcome into this space. Welcome into this time. I'm going to draw a circle around this space, around this time, declaring this space is sacred space. And this time is a very sacred time. I'm going to set my ego to the outside of this circle so I can be a clear conduit for you and for the divine as it reveals itself to you to provide you with information, remind you of your importance, and remind us to take care of ourselves as empaths. So this is the circle with Granddaughter Crow talking about energetic hygiene. The overall takeaways for this class session is we're going to take a deeper look into what is happening. What I mean by that is I have spoke about this is happening and that's happening and this is happening, but we're going to revisit what it actually looks like in like real lived experience. What is happening to your energetic field and your four bodies of existence, and how this energy as an empath, how it translates to each of those bodies, and how to self-care for each of those bodies. Then we're also going to take another look at the importance of energetic hygiene. It's basically like you don't want to walk around carrying residual energy. It will lead to depression and just really bad stuff. And then more tools for self-care. More tools for self-care. Just a second, I have to bite my nose. With the we're here, I'm here in Colorado, and we just had a very interesting snowstorm, and now it's going to be like 75 degrees tomorrow, so the snow is almost all gone. But I think it kind of got like it kicked up something, or I'm not really sure. So nevertheless, let's go ahead and get into the material. This is a reminder. So, highly sensitive person, HSP versus empath. So, Dr. Elaine Aron, credible source, and Dr. Michael Smith, credible source. Dr. Elaine Aron is a psychologist, psychotherapist, and is more of a scientific individual. And she refers to it as HSP, which is actually, she coined that phrase for the HSP. And then Dr. Michael Smith, he calls us empaths. He may use the term highly sensitive people or person, but he is a psychologist, but he also looks through the idea of spirituality. So Dr. Elaine Aron says 15 to 20% of the population are highly sensitive people. Of these 15 to 20%, 50% of them are the biological females and 50% are biological males. So a lot of times in life, we think that it is only the females that are the sensitive ones. Give me just 1 second. I think I started blurring. So we think that it's like a lot of times highly sensitive person is for females. But if you think about it, in her research, she actually found that half of the HSPs are actually biological male, which means that in this society, they must have a really hard time because sensitivity and masculinity are something that old school thinking couldn't blend. And so, shout out to the males that are highly sensitive. And I think about, what they must go through. So, let's go ahead and continue. Dr. Michael Smith, he talks about that there is a spectrum, that you can be low on the spectrum or high on the spectrum. And in past classes, I asked you to kind of go on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being the low end of the empathic spectrum, and 10 being the high end of the empathic spectrum. Where do you land? And I'm going to continue to ask you that to see if it changes. A lot of times in a class, in past classes, I would say, first night of class, where do you land on this spectrum? And people would write it down. Last class, at the end of the last class, where do you land on that spectrum? And inevitably, there's a handful of students that will say, I actually went up. I actually feel like I went up. And my theory around that is because this world that we live in Western society doesn't really uphold the empaths as a superpower, which we'll be talking about next week, the superpower part of it. But it um, kind of looks down on that. It looks down on sensitivity. It's just been like what, maybe 40 years since we've learned about emotional intelligence in the workplace. So these are relatively new concepts. And so when we look at it and I teach a class, maybe these people, this handful of people, think, no, I'm tough. I don't experience all that. But as I peel the onion and explain what's going on and start describing it, they start identifying with it a little bit more, and they're less resistant to, no, I need to hold my own. And they're a little bit more like, I am an empath. And I'm like, I totally get it. When I first recognized that I was an empath, it was actually, we're coming up on 20 years now. And I was like, whoa, I immediately knew that I was a very, very high empath. But I also recognized the things that I was doing in my life to lower that empathic ability. And one of the biggest things that I was doing was getting into the mind and intellectualizing things, trying to not feel everything, just intellectualize it. And oh, maybe that's a part of why I got all these degrees, is because that was my survival mechanism. Or maybe I'm just curious. All of this is speculation. But yeah, over intellectualizing things. And so it's a spectrum. See if you're changing. And if you are, then I'd love to know how and why you feel like you're changing. Dr. Michael Smith also throws down this, the 80% of what an empath experiences does not originate from self. Only 20% of what an empath experiences actually originates from the south or the self, the south. Mercury retrograde strikes again. so so again, Dr. Elaine Aron talks about the highly sensitive person. And in her book, Highly Sensitive Person, there are 4 main traits of an HSP. And it is the acronym DOES. DOES. Depth of processing is one of the traits. Overstimulated or overstimulation or overstimulated easily, emotionally reactive or empathic, and sensitivities to subtleties within the environment. So what we have, I wanted to get a little bit deeper, and I talked about this information, I believe, in the first class, but school tells me repeat it and then come around and repeat it in a different way and then repeat it in a different way because there's different entrances, and then it'll solidify a lot more within our minds. So when we look at this, the depth of processing and the overstimulated aspects, the D and the O, these are what's going on. The insula within the brain has more blood flow to it. So Dr. Elaine Aron and her team actually took the fMRI little things and looked at the brain of highly sensitive people and looked at the brain of non-HSPs. And she found that there was more blood flow to certain areas within the HSP, especially if they would see pictures of loved ones or memories. They did a lot of different, they showed them different pictures, and where it stimulated their mind was in a lot more blood flow in 8 different places. And then the non-HSPs, they do have blood flow to these places, obviously, for a healthy mind, but not as much. So more blood flow to the part of the brain, more energy, more activity going on. So here we go. We have more blood flow to the insula, which is also known as the seat of consciousness. If you were a computer, this would be your hard drive. This would be your processing unit. This would be, your um, what is when I remember when I took a computer class way back in maybe even the late 80s or not early 90s, and I learned about RAM and ROM. And RAM is random access memory. It's that memory that kind of erases, and then ROM is the read-only memory, and I believe that that is the deep processor that actually holds things, the hard drive. So if you are a computer expert and you're like, Granddaughter Crow, you got them backwards or whatever, then let me know. Or if you are a computer expert and you're like, damn, she remembers that, give me a high five. Because I'm just processing. So it's kind of interesting because the seat of consciousness is going to be that place where we deeply process the world around us. That's why we tend to quote unquote overthink. We also have more blood flow to memory, different memory banks, not just the memory, but the emotions that we felt when we reflect into that memory. And especially as a cancers where Capricorns tend to look towards the future, cancers tend to be nostalgic. And although one could argue that Capricorns can be nostalgic and Cancers can look to the future, I agree. But in this, I would say me as a Cancer being nostalgic, I do have the same house that I've had for over 25 years. I do like certain foods, I do like ritual, I do like to create my own rituals and continue to do them. But it also is like when I look to the past, I don't only remember, oh, that situation. I'm like, oh, that oh, that situation. I feel a lot of energy, emotional energy, actually current emotional energy that comes with that emotional or memory. We also listen deeply. So we're not only listening to the words, we're listening to the tone, we're listening to everything. And we're not just listening with our ears and our eyes to see the body language. We're listening like with our heart, and we're listening with everything there is about us. It's kind of like I remember this one of my first papers that I wrote when I entered college in my undergrad degree was a paper about listening. And I read this book, The Art of Listening, and it was a really beautiful book because it is an art form to actually to listen without the need to figure out how you're going to respond, just to take it all in. And I literally say that the art of listening is like going on a trip where somebody else is driving and you don't know the destination or how long it's going to take, and you don't take any luggage with you, and you're not preempting what's going on. You release and allow the other person to take you on their story. And when you do that, it actually allows the other person to take you on their original story instead of take you on this story where they're like, oh, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say that I shouldn't have done that because you're bringing luggage with you. You just kind of show up and be present. That's the art of listening. And I know as an empath, I do that. I mean, that's what I do on the podcast. That's what I do in a read. I'm actually listening to the words that people are working with, and all of that. So deep listening. And then we also lack the filtration system of what non-highly sensitive people call irrelevant information. So if you think about just this, that's why we get overstimulated, because this takes a lot more to actually digest deeper, to actually have the emotions with the memory, to actually listen beyond just what words are coming out of their mouth. And then we're also paying attention to this. We don't have a lack of filter. So remember, we can be overstimulated. As strong as you may see me, I actually have a practice where I try not to do more than 3 things a day. 3 reads a day, or 2 reads and the circle, or, 1 podcast and 2 reads. Every now and again, I will be in something where somebody last minute asks me, and I'm just like, I can pull this off, but I also know that I'll be able to show up with all of my energy. But I also know that that evening, I need to figure out how to decompress because I inevitably will be overstimulated. And me overstimulated first looks like I can't get off the treadmill. I'm like, oh, I got to send out an email. I got to check my website. I got to da 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 da, because I've got so much stimulation that I'm still like, do 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 do. So if you're catching me and I'm sending out emails and I'm doing all this, it's kind of like, maybe I'm fine. Don't try and diagnose Granddaughter Crow. But sometimes I notice that I do that after I've been overstimulated. So I continue the cycle of overstimulation. And then I crash and I want to cry. And I'm just like, let me watch a sad movie. I've got to move all these emotions, it's just too much. And so and sometimes it's like over a process. When I was doing a lot of in person, I was doing back-to-back reads for 5-6 hours. That takes a lot. And then if you do that for 3 or 4 days in a row, you can pull it off. I've pulled that off. You have to exercise that muscle, but at the end of the day, um, me and my husband used to call them the Sunday evening meltdowns, because inevitably it was like, let's order in some food, let's have a glass of wine, let's watch a sad movie, and let the raven cry and feel all of her feelings that make no sense to her, but it's just this residual buildup. And so now I take even more care of myself, and I know my limit. And and then I take my down days. And sometimes you will like try to text me and you won't hear from me for a day. That's me taking care of me, but also loving you by telling you, you can text me, call me whenever you want. It is my responsibility to take care of me. And so just food for thought. That's what happens. And it changes. For me, I do 3 things a day. And then I take 2 days for 5 days, and I take 2 days off. And it's really actually, I'm pretty balanced with it. I understand myself. Now let's take another look at the empathy, the E and the S of the does, the empathy and sensitivity towards subtleties. Why are we this way? Well, we have more blood flow to the mirror neuron, which actually is a thinking cell that reflects the world around you. That's why we tend to feel like, where does the other end and where do I begin? That's why we get confused and we merge into the situation. And if you're not a trained, skilled empath, you actually take on everybody around you, and it can get to be way too much. Before I knew that I couldn't be around certain people for an extended amount of time, but I also am not gentle. I go to hell and back with people. Right now, I mean, I'm working with a lot of people who are watching other people in their final transition, working with some other people, about 3 different people right now, that their loved one has cancer, working with, there's a lot of things that I do. And then sometimes, I work with people just because they want a shamanistic experience. So I work in a lot of depth. So it's not to say that empaths are weak. We're not weak. We're very strong, but we also need to be mindful about how we operate, what is actually going on. We also look at the word choice and the sound and the language, which, by the way, I actually watch my word choice. And when my word choice starts sounding off to me, I'm like, that's a sign that I'm overstimulated. That's a sign that I've taken on too much. If I start using weird language like, oh, I don't know. Instead of being like, "Hi everybody, Granddaughter Crow here." If I'm just like, "Hey guys, what's up? It's GDC. Yeah, you know me. Oh, why am I sounding like this? Oh, you know, I see those little word choices and I'm like, ooh, I could have chosen a better word. And so that was another one of my clues that I am overstimulated. So I'm trying to give you guys an example, putting myself as an example for you to start looking at you or the loved one around you that is a highly sensitive person. What are their little things that they start doing when they become overstimulated? And at that point, help them to decompress. We watch body language. I also wanted to say this. I pose a question to you. What else do you personally catch as an empath? Patterns, sounds, sight? Like for me, yes, yes, yes. Although it's not in the study and the research, there is a part of me that's like, if somebody who texts me, they text me and they've texted me, and that's how we communicate. One day they call me, I'm like, what happened? Pattern change. And for you beautiful people that just notice details, you may understand, hey, yeah, I watch people's patterns. And it's kind of like one day somebody would schedule an appointment. They put it in there and they spell out their whole name. They kept spelling out their whole name, kept spelling out their whole name. And one day they were just like half of their name, kind of like the first part of their name, and then their last names, the capitalized. And I was like, whoa. I mean, I pick up on that because I saw the pattern. And so I know that this is going to be a sensitive conversation because this person is changing. They're not giving themselves enough time or whatever it is. Another time there was this lady, when she books, she always writes her name the same. And then one day she started calling herself a different name. She added in her middle name. And it was right after her mother had passed. And I mentioned that to her, and she was like, I didn't even realize that. And I mentioned that I noticed that to the person who, made their name short. And they were like, I was feeling that way. I didn't even notice that I did that. So there's a lot of different indicators. My question to you is, what indicators do you see? Is pattern change? Is it when somebody who's usually soft spoken gets loud, or somebody that's loud gets soft? What other indicators do you utilize to keep track of the world around you and what is stimulating to you? The person who always dresses in black all of a sudden is wearing hot pink. Yeah, I would notice that. I would notice that. Yay! We all know this. We've been here. We throw this shit down. Yes, I said that. Energy detective, start here. We are perceiving energy. Remember, Dr. Michael Smith says 80% does not originate from you. It originates from external environments. Only 20% originates from you, the self, the me. Take care of it. If you decide, now you get to make the decision. Do you get to engage, be neutral, or disengage with love? And this is one that I have to practice. And I ask my high empaths, what does it look like for you to disengage? Because it might look a little differently than how Granddaughter Crow disengages or the other empath disengages. But give yourself the right to learn how to disengage, how to be neutral. And that is a part of your emotional energetic hygiene. You have to be able to disengage. If you do choose to engage, make sure that you're putting the energy where it will count, it will grow, it'll give back to you. Become the energy detective, and all things lead to the same. Energy, all is energy. Energy seeks freedom. Freedom comes from movement. Movement via anything that oscillates, movement, movement, movement. So now let's get into this. We may feel like this, but we are actually this. So when I am overstimulated, when I haven't taken care of my energetic hygiene, I may be like, just a little kitten and it hurt my feelings, and I might be like, but that's how I feel. Like I'm not speaking loud enough. But in truth, I'm like, and so be aware that sometimes the way that you feel on the inside, especially when you get frustrated or overstimulated, you feel like, well, nobody's hearing me. Well, Grant, you are going to be yelling and you need to be aware of how you're coming across. At least I need to be aware of how I'm coming across. So this is the beauty and core of the class right here. We always return to the Vitruvian man and the four bodies of existence: the physical body, the emotional body, the mental body, and the spiritual body. So if you receive, based on the information that we just went over with your insula and your mirror neurons and your depth of processing and your overstimulation and your emotional reactivity and empathy, and you're noticing the subtleties within the environment, if you don't cleanse that, this is what happens. Your physical body, it will hit your nervous system, and that will constitute anxiety, or it hits your nervous system. So that may impact your sleeping, that may impact your eating, that may impact how you're coming out in the world, that may impact your thinking, your nervous system. So with the hygiene, we are going to be talking about tools to get this back in order. And some people have nervous system disorders, and I often wonder to myself, is it because they're an empath that doesn't know how to release the energy? Speculation. But physically, we receive it in our nervous system. And if we are overstimulated, which inevitably we will be, it's not a bad thing. It is what happens when you're burning all cylinders. Watch your nervous system. Emotionally, what does this overstimulation do? It leads to lower dense emotions. Remember when I said the Sunday night meltdowns? Have a glass of wine, loosen up the emotions, turn on a sad movie and cry it out. You have to release those denser emotions, or this feeling of, where usually you can be like, oh yeah, everything's okay. That doesn't bother me. I've got this. When you are overstimulated, that changes and you're like, Well, why did that happen to me? I've got to take that personally. That person's really, really mean. And I'm not saying that those aren't normal feelings. They absolutely are. But if you start going in that direction, where you go, if I had a good night's sleep and something good to eat, I really wouldn't react like this, but I am just so exhausted. So leave me alone, world, cold, cruel world, leave me alone. Yes, that is a sign that you are emotionally overstimulated. I used to do that every Sunday. I would, I have a beautiful Kuan Yin statue right by my door. And after I'd get home, after I've been working, doing psychic energy classes, etc., I am inevitably overstimulated. That's why they pay me what they pay me so that I can recoup and show up for them. And that's my responsibility. It's to be balanced just as much as it is to show up for you. I have to make sure that I have that ability. So I practice these tools. I used to walk through my door and then I would look at Kuan Yin and I would, no, first I'd look out the door and I would say, goodbye, cold, cruel world, and literally shut the door because that's moving my body and getting that energy out and expressing and vibrating and oscillating. Lock the door and then light a candle and ask Kuan Yin, please take care of the people. I'm off the clock. Watch over them, watch over them. So these are different techniques that I'm doing. The emotional body, mental body. If you start experiencing depression or anxiety, that could be a sign that your mental body needs to release residual energy. Remember the 80% of your, what you're picking up doesn't originate from you? Yeah. So, we consider everybody else and we're like, oh, if I take care of everybody else, it'll make me feel better. But sometimes in taking care of everybody else, we get overstimulated and then we start getting like anxious, anxiety, and those types of things. And then if you look at the spiritual body, what you're looking at with the spiritual body, when it is overstimulated, there is a sense of being lost or disconnected from spirit or choosing to disconnect from spirit. It's kind of like, stop the press. I don't want to hear anything. I don't want to see anything. I don't want to speak anything. I'm tired. Quit giving me messages. I don't want to pick up all of this stuff. What does it have to do with me anyway? That is me being overstimulated and having to find my balance. So it's very, very, um, these are just indicators. Watch yourself or your loved one for these different things and then think about how they can decompress. And so here's the decompression. First, I will give you the power shower, the wind release, looking up. We'll actually go backwards. Take it from the bottom and go up to the top. Looking up. There is a scientific study that says, if you stand in this pose, Superman pose or Wonder Woman pose, and you literally just physically look up to the sky, you start feeling better. I'm going to ask you to do that just for a second. Just kind of and literally look up. It starts relieving energy. So if you only have 2 seconds and you need to recharge, that's another little tool that you can use. Plus, it's fun. The next one, if you want to increase that and the wind is blowing outside, I would say go outside, put your hands on your hips, look up and face the wind and let the wind move through you. Physically feel it. Let it move through your emotional body and carry those emotions, those overstimulated emotions, those residual emotions that are not yours. Let them carry it away. Mentally, let it blow through your mind and carry the residual energies away that's not serving you and let it flow through your spiritual body. That is a really cool one. And then the last one is going to be the meditation. And I do variations of this meditation. Oh, I got to do the power shower. So the next time, even if you're not dirty, but you know that you are overstimulated or you know that your loved one is overstimulated, tell them to take a quick 5-10 minute power shower. And as they stand under the water, tell them visualize the water, literally the water in the shower, is not only rolling over them, cleansing and releasing and calming their nervous system, but is also rolling through their emotional body, rinsing and residual energy down the drain. It also is rolling down through their mental body, releasing things through the drain, and also their spiritual body, releasing the static that we get. This is very important to keep your empath balanced and at high capacity. And it's the energetic type of hygiene. It's, if you think about it, I mean, we take showers a lot. We wash our hair, or we shave, or we put on deodorant, or we brush our teeth, and your normal hygiene. You're taking care of yourself. As empaths, you need to take extra care of these things so that you can literally show up for other people, which is what you really want to do. Either that or hide. I got you. I got you. I've got a weighted blanket. I hide. I'm just like, Mondays and Tuesdays, day off, Granddaughter Crow. So, meditation time. So I'm going to invite you to breathe and put your fingertips together and breathe in and hold, and then exhale and release, and continue to breathe in, hold, exhale and release. Remembering as you breathe and continue to breathe deeply that you are in sacred space, you are in a sacred time. And I'm going to invite you to do a body scan and feel your nervous system. Ask it, tell it that it is safe in this moment and that it's allowed to relax. It's allowed to relax. Now I'm going to invite you to a paradise tropical land where the sun is the perfect temperature, where you can hear the beautiful birds, where you can feel the beauty around you. And we find that waterfall that goes into a pool of water. And this water is the perfect temperature, and it is a healing well. So you step in there, and as you step in there, you begin to feel the warmth, and your nervous system, as you go into the water, starts relaxing. Your muscles relax. Your emotional body starts relaxing. Your mental body starts letting go, becoming present. Your spiritual body rinses away in residual energy, and you find yourself dipping down and coming up fresh. This is a healing pool of water, and there is a waterfall, and there is beauty all around. You can inhale and smell the beauty of the natural world. You can hang out here. There's a little nutritious lunch waiting for you on the bank. And just flow and play and let go. For this is the moment to remind you, this is who you are. This is self-care. This is how to take care of you. And it's this fast that this is all it takes to rinse away the residual energy, to calm your nervous system, to rinse away the troubled mind, the overstimulated emotions, and free your spirit. Whenever you're ready, remember you can return here at any time. Whenever you're ready, go ahead and there is a beautiful, warm, cushy towel that's waiting for you. And you get to put the towel on and you get to sit down and open the picnic basket. And there's your favorite libation and there's your favorite little snacks. And you get to sit here in the sunlight next to the healing pool and tend to your emotional and mental and spiritual and physical bodies of existence. And with that, I'm going to invite you to come back into this space, into this time with Granddaughter Crow. So there we go. Now it's time for our 3-card pull, which I love to do right after we do those kind of exercises because it's just a little bit more woo, little refreshing. I feel calm, cool, and collected. So pick a group 1, group 2, group 3. Here is the message for group 1. Oh, group 1, let go. Let go and move forward. Granddaughter Crow sitting on your shoulders, saying, okay, let's let go. Let's move forward. Let's see what animal is with you this week. Ooh, let go and rise above. Let go and rise above. Maybe you have a totem that is light and wants to see. Maybe you have a 4-legged totem. This one is saying, just like much like Khalil Gibran says, let go from your clinging to the earth. Rise above. It's not all on you. It's not all your responsibility. Okay, group 2. Ooh, group 2, blue moon. This is beautiful mastery, recognition, and evolution. This is really kind of a message saying, look for the miracles this week. And you get the beaver. The beaver is the builder. And so it's really about you've put a lot of work into whatever it is that you're doing, and your reward is on the horizon. And it may come out of the blue. Let the sky be the limit. And then group 3. Oh, group 3, just rest and cleanse. Balanced relationships are balanced. Yep, relationships, self-expression, and healthy boundaries. You've got the stag, you've got the deer. This is all about find yourself in that beautiful forest and let go. You guys, oops. Well, apparently I picked this card. If you do so, you are going to receive more spiritual connection, completion, and wisdom from a baby buffalo. So also a little bit of more of financial security coming in. How much fun is that? So thank you, thank you, thank you for joining us. So today we took a deeper look into what is happening to me as an empath, and the importance of energetic hygiene and what it looks like when you might be overstimulated. I gave you some basic examples of what happens to Granddaughter Crow. Think about what happens to you. And then more tools to self-care. Thank you for joining us. This is the Empaths Energetic Hygiene, the Circle with Granddaughter Crow. And with that, thank you for joining. And if you have any questions and are watching this on the replay, just catch me on the email. And anyway, have a wonderful week and we'll see you on the flippity flip.